everyone, a warm welcome to our friends and our listeners from around the world. This is Red Ice Radio. My name is Henrik, and we are based out of West Gothland, one of the old provinces in Sweden, Scandinavia. It is indeed great to be able to speak with you. And I want to thank you for your interest in the kind of topics that we cover, and that you understand the importance of educating yourself, learning and investigating on your own terms, finding out what we can and study, both to become wiser so that we can make better choices, but also to sharpen our ability to see through the lies and the artificial constructs that are constantly being built up around us. Today we have for you an extended segment with Karen Hudes. On her website, kahudes.net, we can read that she studied law at Yale Law School and economics at the University of Amsterdam. She worked in the U.S. Export-Import Bank of the U.S. from 1980 to 1985, and in the legal department of the World Bank from 1986 to 2007. After that, she established the non-governmental organization Committee of the International Law Section of the American Bar Association and the Committee on Multilateralism and the Accountability of International Organization of the American branch of the International Law Association. Now, Karen has become known as a whistleblower, and she's been outspoken about her time at the World Bank and the corruption that she saw there. She has also talked consequently on issues of economics, global policies of major organizations to the alternative media. And so these are the topics that we are going to attempt to get to the root of today and see if we can understand her work a little bit better. We'll see what you think. Karen Hudes, thank you for coming on with us. It's going to be interesting. I'm eager and curious to hear more about your work. So thank you for being here today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be with you.
You bet. So you were in the World Bank within about 20 years. You've been talking about the massive fraud and collusion within the banking system, and of course the World Bank in specifics. Why don't we just talk a little bit about your path, I guess, first here, kind of set the framework a little bit, what you've been through, and when you decided to speak out, Karen.
Yes. Well, I didn't ever not speak out. It's just relatively recently that I've gotten through the mainstream, not at all through the mainstream media, through the alternative media. And that's, I think, the biggest conclusion for your listeners to take away, that there is very active censorship, because the issues that I'm reporting, and I'm working with a group of whistleblowers inside the World Bank. And after I was fired illegally, I've been joined by whistleblowers all over the world. So we're basically a network of whistleblowers. We're all reporting the same thing: massive, massive, massive corruption in the financial sector. So I can tell you, when I started out, I had no idea of the depth of the corruption. But what we're doing is we are uncovering the cover-up. There has been a cover-up of this corruption that we're talking about, and I can describe it at great length to you. The function of our whistleblowers group is just like in The Wizard of Oz, Toto the dog that pulls aside the curtain. The whistleblowers working collectively have exposed this corruption, and what you now have is you have this secret world of corruption that didn't think it was going to be exposed, just like the wizard who kept pointing to the big projection screen, saying, don't look at what's going on behind this irrelevant curtain, look up at the screen. The screen is what the mainstream media is telling people. It's all propaganda and lies.
What did you do within the World Bank, Karen, then?
I was in the World Bank legal department, and so I was there for the first 10 years. I was working as a country lawyer on various projects in the different countries I was assigned to. I started out working on Jordan and Yemen. The man who brought me into the World Bank was a lawyer named Ibrahim Shihada, who before he joined the World Bank was the general counsel of OPEC. That's the Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. And after I was at the World Bank just a year, an Egyptian lawyer who is now a business partner of mine came and asked if I wanted to meet the man who was representing the Egyptian government on the board. And I did, and I have stayed in touch with him, and I have been in touch with all of the board members. The World Bank was created in 1944. At that time, there were 44 countries. At this point, the membership is 188 countries, and there are 25 resident executive directors who are on the board. And I have been working almost on a daily basis with the board. I have been cajoling the board members. I have met with them individually. I have written to the countries many, many times. And the best thing about the World Bank is it's a knowledge bank, which is to say that there is a lot to be learned there. And I think the most exciting thing that I and the other whistleblowers have benefited from is a very accurate, it's called a power transition model. A political scientist named Jacek Kugler came to the World Bank in 2004, and he had been developing it's a computer simulation modeling tool that predicts how coalitions will form. And I worked with him on a project in Ghana, but after that I asked him if he would allow me to model rule of law inside the World Bank. And he did allow me to model that. And you can read the model. I didn't realize at the time that Jacek had also done a model, not of the World Bank, but of the world at large. So I had, but my model and his model agreed very fundamentally, because the World Bank is, it's like a microcosm of the world. Many international organizations, you'll have the countries with one country, one vote, but the World Bank is set up differently. The countries' votes are weighted by the size of their economies. So the United States, which is the largest, or it's considered to be the biggest economy, has 16% of the votes. And then the countries go on down the line. You can see on their website how the countries are weighted. And so I modeled rule of law inside the World Bank, and I didn't realize that the corruption inside the World Bank was actually caused by the corruption outside the World Bank. That's a no-brainer, but at the time, right, I just didn't know that we had a secret group of corrupt companies that thought they owned the world. And that's what we're up against. But I'm happy to tell people that all of the countries of the world have band together, formed a coalition, and we are now taking back the world from that corrupt bunch. And who is that corrupt bunch? It's described very, very accurately by 3 mathematicians at the Federal Institute of Technology, who modeled the 43,000 transnational companies on the capital markets. And what they found out was a surprise. They found out that all of the financial institutions are actually one international institution. They call it a network of control. What this sneaky group did was they took the same directors and put them on the boards of all the companies. That's called interlocking directors. And so this group has grabbed secret control of the 40% of the net worth of all of the companies traded on the capital markets and 60% of their annual earnings. And anybody can read this article. The way the mathematicians describe it, they say, well, this is just an accident that happened, and we don't think the group is necessarily doing anything bad. And then Forbes ran an article, and they said many of the holding companies are just the big pensions, and they're not taking an active collusion interest. But that is absolutely not the case, because what this group did is they bought all of the media, and they have been lying systematically to all of the people who expect when they turn on the news that they're not getting propaganda. But they are.
Definitely. This is the one, the report, the paper is called The Network of Global Corporate Control. It's the one out of Switzerland, right? Zurich.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about.
That's right. It was called, they did it through network topology, I believe, and they found, indeed, within that, a structure of, was it 147 or so companies that interlocked in this way. And I definitely don't want to leave that tangent. That's something we need to keep in the background here all the time as we talk more about the people and everything. But I did want to ask you a little bit more about what you believe the creation of the World Bank, if this was created with that intention, as you said, back in 1944 at the Bretton Woods Conference, along with a couple of other institutions at the same time, the IMF among some of the other ones. But it was, the founders were John Maynard Keynes. He was a member of the Fabian Society for a short while. You had Harry Dexter White and all that. And officially, the World Bank was formed as an international financial institution that was going to provide loans to developing countries. But do you think that it was founded on those principles, or was the corruption systemic from day one within this organization? What do you think?
It's not an easy answer because the main thing that the World Bank was created to do on the face of it, and what many of the countries believe, don't forget the countries went and signed treaties. So it has a structure that we can take back. It was hijacked. There are layers within layers. And after I was fired, I found out that one of the main functions of the World Bank and the IMF, these two organizations are really, for all practical purposes, just one organization.
Right.
They're across the street from each other, and there's a board of governors, which is the ministers of finance of all the member countries. And those ministers of finance gather together twice a year, plus there's a group of 25 ministers of finance that meet and consult with each other on an ongoing basis. And so the answer is that, yes, there was always a secret hidden agenda, but at the same time, it is a convening party. And it is a structure that the people of the earth who want to clean up this corruption in the financial system. And it is a matter of whether or not we're going to continue with Western civilization. We're on the edge. And I can also tell you that this stakeholder model I was describing, this power transition model, it's 90 to 95% accurate. And when Elaine Colville, who is a Scottish whistleblower from the World Bank, and I got our statements up on the UK Parliament, and I'll be happy to give your listeners links so you can see what we were reporting to the UK Parliament. Once that happened, the model started predicting that we in the humanity would use the World Bank structure and the IMF structure to eradicate this corruption. It provides a legal basis, and the laws that I was using, because when I started out, I was just doing what a lawyer inside an entity that issues bonds on the capital markets, because that's what the World Bank does. It issues $180 billion worth of bonds all over the place, denominated in all the currencies of the world. It takes the money from the people who buy those bonds, and it trades on the capital markets, earns money. That's how the World Bank finances its budget. So I was trying to correct the financial information. That was my job as a lawyer inside the World Bank legal department. And the laws for financial disclosure are cut and dry. They're very clear. And so I have used those laws as a scaffolding to clean up the corruption that we're going to be describing. So that's one of the hardest jobs that I have when I'm talking to people on the radio. They think I'm a whistleblower like, Snowden or anybody else. But I'm actually not a whistleblower. I'm a sting operation.
Explain that a little bit.
Me and the World Bank whistleblowers are a sting operation, and we are enforcing the securities laws, because when there's a cover-up and the financial statements are inaccurate, the people who own this institution have got to do something. And so I have been going to all of the governments of the world, including in the United States. I've been going to all of the state governments because they are obligated to protect the people that live in their state. So I'm not just working on the federal level in the United States, and I'm not just working